welcome to this new episode of The Modern Rider, the first equestrian podcast that brings together the sport and horsemanship. A special place to discover inspiring interviews with the best equestrian professionals to help us become better, more aware and responsible riders. A groom can't necessarily win you a medal, but they can certainly lose you one. These are the words of our guest today, Lucy Katan, founder of both the British and International Grooms Associations. And that quote says it all. Grooms are absolutely essential in the day-to-day running of a stable. Having worked as a groom myself, I know firsthand how demanding yet deeply rewarding this job can be. Grooms are often the horse's closest companion, ensuring their well-being no matter the weather, the season, or the pressure of competition. They are the quiet force behind the scenes that helps riders shine. In short, what would we do without them? Yet, despite their importance, this role has long remained invisible, leading to precarious work conditions and lack of recognition. But that began to change when Lucy decided to speak up in 2007, determined to give a voice to those who had none. Thanks to her efforts and her vision of a more respectful and professional equestrian world, thousands of grooms have now joined the British Groom Association, and since 2022, the International Grooms Association has been growing steadily too. In this interview, Lucy shares the behind-the-scenes story of how these landmark organizations came to be, the challenges she faced along the way, her advice for grooms and stables alike, and her mission to create safer, fairer working environments, all with warmth, insight, and contagious energy. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to leave a rating, a comment, or share it with your friends. It's the best way to support the podcast and, more importantly, to amplify the voices of our incredible guests. So turn up the volume and get comfortable to listen to this exciting new interview. Welcome, Lucy. It's a pleasure for me to have you today on the podcast. It's been a while we're chatting now, and I can't wait to know more about you and obviously to share your experience and the great work you're doing for the equestrian industry. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. I like it to start easy so that people can know you a bit better and the work you're doing. So I just wanted to ask you if you would mind to tell us a bit about your equestrian journey and how did it shape the path to where you are today?
Okay, so my father is Dutch, and in Holland, when you are young, in those days you had to go in the army. So my father went in the army, and to avoid doing many army things, he ended up riding horses in the Dutch army, and that was how he became an equestrian, and then he passed that on to me. So from quite a young age, I discovered horses. I did all the usual: pony, have a horse. I was a bit of a not very brave, so I ended up as a dressage rider. I found that was my preferred. And then eventually I ended up working with horses, and I became a groom and an instructor. I enjoyed teaching children, particularly. That was something that was good. But I became a dressage groom, and then I became a groom at a yard, British team rider, and I went to European and World Equestrian Games, and we were supposed to be going to Sydney Olympics, but unfortunately the horse went a little bit lame and we never travelled, which was very sad. And yeah, so that's how I started off with horses. And then when we went to the World Equestrian Games in 2002 in Jerez, we had a really bad time. It was, I'll be honest, it was not the greatest show. Apart from the fact that we didn't do so well, but that didn't matter. The accommodation was awful. The food was awful. We were not invited to any parties of any description. The team management was not good from the British team. And I came home and I was just like, this is rubbish. We need to do something to improve this. And that was the beginning of me speaking up for grooms and my work for grooms.
Okay, so that's how then the association and after that associations what was born, right?
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to make a speech at an equestrian function in the UK, and I was quite outspoken, and I said, grooms are your best and most important asset on all levels, from riding schools to livery to competition. As I always say, a groom can't necessarily win you a medal, but they can certainly lose you a medal. And I was outspoken, and I was a little nervous because Princess Anne was in the room, and it was lots of people, and it was not something I was used to doing. But as a result, I had to do like a Dragon's Den style funding. And as a result, I ended up forming the British Grooms Association. And that was in 2007. And the vision of the British Grooms Association was always to be the representative voice and organisation for all that work with horses in the UK, in Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And we were formed as a not-for-profit social enterprise. And here we are now, many years later, with thousands of members, and we've helped thousands of grooms over the years.
Which is great.
Yep. So before the, when I was a groom, I had some really great times, but also some not great times. I was poorly employed, with no contract and whatever, and in one position I was very badly bullied by another member of staff, which was horrible. And I had no one to turn to. I had nobody to go to for support, and I thought that was wrong. So that's why I formed the BGA.
Because that's a, I believe, situation that you witnessed mainly maybe for Great Britain or the British equestrians groom, let's say, but maybe you had the chance like to share some words with other grooms in different nationalities. Did you notice any differences?
Yeah, so I was actually at that time when I was on the British team, I was good friends with two Dutch grooms, one who worked for Ankie van Grunsson, and we actually went to a show in Moscow all together before the World Equestrian Games, and it was Russia were changed times, hey, but Russia were bidding for the European Dressage Championships. So they had to run the kind of test event to prove they could run a dressage show. So they flew myself and many other grooms and riders to Moscow. And because they'd never run a show before, they didn't know what they were doing, really. And as a result, they treated the grooms really well. We all stayed in a hotel. We had lovely food. We were invited to the parties. I can barely remember it, but apparently Putin did come to the stables and stroke the horses. The one day they said, "What do you want for lunch?" We all went, "We just want McDonald's." And before we knew it, there were 10 cars taking us to McDonald's. And there were grooms from all over the world, from Australia, from Italy, from Germany, Holland. Anyway, we all were like, "Wow, this is amazing. This is so different." And then on the last night, there was supposed to be some kind of gala outside, but the weather wasn't so good. So they moved it to, I always remember this, an Uzbekistan feast restaurant. Completely random. Anyway, so we all sat on the tables. There was lots of vodka. It was alcoholic, I won't lie. Great food. And at the end, there was the Moscow Symphony State Orchestra. Just a little segment of it that was playing away for us. We were like, "This is amazing. This is great. This is so different." The horses were fine. They're in the stables. There was security. They were fine. No one was silly about it. We just were like, "Yeah, sure, we'll come to the party." And then Ankie stood up and made a speech and thanked the Moscow Organising Committee. What a lovely show. And she thinks they'll do a great dressage Europeans. And one of the grooms on our table, I cannot even remember her name, she said, "I'm going to say something." We were like, "Okay." So she got up, she was Australian, she was very proud. She went to the front and she said, Anki, can I now say something? And all the grooms were like cheering her, and and she was amazing. She stood and she said, "Thank you to the organising committee. Grooms have never been treated so well." And she just made this wonderful speech, and I thought, "Wow, she's so right," and this was so nice, and everybody just got on, and for me that was a real game changer moment. That why should grooms be treated as a second-rate citizen? Why shouldn't they be invited to the party of the show and be expected to put something nice on, because we don't just spend all our time in jeans and dirty boots and getting hot and sweaty. We can actually be normal. It is not. So anyway, so yeah, that was a good story. And at that time, none of those grooms, they all carried on working, but I stopped working as a groom.
Mm-hmm.
I went and worked in marketing, administration, and it was just a job, but it was a lovely job. And it gave me the opportunity and the space to form the British Grooms Association in my spare time. And I had the vision and the drive and the support from the British Equestrian Federation. That's important to say. The chief executive at the time was very supportive of my vision and agreed with it. He was quite inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I formed the BGA, and now we're, very
That's
established
great.
organization.
Because it's really curious, because like I'm sure that now it evolved, and I've seen the last maybe 2 years that the space for the grooms in the communication, in the media, are taking a bigger space slowly. But it's funny you're talking about Jerez, because right now I'm reading a book of, I don't know if you knew him, Jean-Maurice Bonneau, who was a trainer of the French jumping team at that time. And I'm quite surprised, because he talks a lot about the grooms and how he cared about them and how they really tried to make their life easier, let's say. Then we don't have the details on how the accommodation and everything. But I believe, like, how to say that? Sometimes it's curious to see like how much time the groom spent with the team, with the rider, especially. I mean, with the horses, obviously, but with the rider. And sometimes there's a real friendship that's been created. And I always wondered, like, how come the riders didn't raise their voice before yours? I don't know if you understand what I mean.
I don't know. I think that lots of people sit, and they still do it now. They sit on their tack trunks, outside their stables at the competition, and they moan and they groan. And nowadays, the modern version of this is a Facebook group or whatever, where they moan and they groan. And I'm going to be honest, I think it takes a bit of gumption, a great British word, gumption, to actually do something about it. And also, I think it takes more than one person, and there was more than just me. I had a board of directors that I formed, and other people that shared the same vision. But it does take one person to be crazy enough to drive it forward and have that vision. And my father is an entrepreneur, so maybe I am a little too. So I had the ability to do it. But I have to raise the money, and I still to this day have to raise the money, because I'm not a volunteer. My days of volunteering are done, and I need to. We all need to earn a living, so it's very hard to earn a living out of grooms associations. You're not going to get rich. Anyone that thinks they will not. So yeah, it was just a case of making it work. And for many years, many years, I was running the BGA in what I call evenings and weekends. And I had a full-time job. I was transport manager for the Olympic Village in 2012. And I worked for LOCOG, London Organising Committee, for 3 years. I've done many other jobs whilst I was forming. Now the BGA is kind of semi-full-time, and of course we have the International Grooms Association as well. So, but yeah, it's I think before that people weren't organized enough, they couldn't see how to make a difference.
What are the difference between the British Association and the International Association?
So I forget, but maybe about 3-4 years ago, the FEI changed president from Princess Haya to Ingmar de Vos. And Ingmar wrote in his manifesto that he wanted, which was his plans on what he would do as the new FEI president. He wrote that he would give the grooms a voice and give the grooms the opportunity to have their own organization. Good luck. How will you do this, Ingmar? I like it, but how will you do it? And anyhow, so I was asked to go to Lausanne and meet with Ingmar and have a chat. And we did, and I had to put a funding proposal forward, but basically he wanted me to create an international version of the BGA, which we did, and which now exists. And the difference between the two is that the British Grooms Association is a national grooms association. It predominantly exists for grooms within our articles of association, for grooms that work and live in the UK. So British grooms and non-British grooms, but who live and work in the UK. And we are the national, and it's for all grooms, from all yards, all low-level riding schools, whatever. But the International Grooms Association is for FEI level grooms. Okay, so that's the difference. It's international in the sense of an international competition, but also worldwide, but for the sense of for grooms that we call competing internationally, representing your country. So you wear your flag on your jacket. So the IGA exists for the grooms that work for riders who compete internationally.
Okay.
And that can be the show grooms, also to the grooms who work in the stables at home, so the home grooms.
Okay.
But also for any groom that has an aspiration to become an international groom, they can come and join the IGA. So we're only 3 years or so old. We're a very young organisation, still finding our feet, still developing. But our core purpose, the IGA, is to represent grooms to the FEI. So we are now a stakeholder of the FEI. So someone asked me last week, before Christmas at London International Horse Show, well, why do you exist? What's the point? What's the point of me being a member? Why do I belong? And I said as follows. Before the IGA existed, grooms had no voice within the FEI, but every other stakeholder had a voice within the FEI through their club, their group, their organisation. So, for example, the judges, the officials, the breeders, the owners, the riders, the event riders, the show jumpers, the dressage, the riders, and it goes on. So every group is a stakeholder through their organisation to the FEI. So the FEI hears their voice. The problem was, and why Ingmar wrote it, and he's absolutely right, he wrote it on his manifesto, is that the most important group, i.e. the grooms, because without grooms we know there is no show, there's no industry. I'd like to see the riders do it on their own. No choice. So without the grooms having a formal voice, their grooms have no voice in the FEI. Okay, and you can't have one groom or two grooms or three grooms. It has to be a not-for-profit, well-constructed organisation meeting the FEI approvals. So not a Facebook group or a group that an organisation or a company that belongs to a private person. It has to be a not-for-profit, well-formatted company with articles of association and representative committees, etc. And then that becomes the member body, or the stakeholder, as they call it, of the FEI. So when we formed the IGA at the Sports Forum, and when we launched at the Sports Forum, what happened was that myself and Ingmar, signed the Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU, which means that now the IGA is the, forevermore, formal stakeholder to the FEI. So grooms, as members of the IGA, have a voice within the FEI. Now, my question to the groom that I was talking to was, can you imagine if I made the IGA not work? I had to close it. Then grooms won't have a voice anymore. Is that okay? And she said, well, no, not really. So I said, so this is why people say, why should I belong to the IGA? Well, so you have a voice. Because if we don't have grooms that belong to their organization, we still have the voice, but the voice isn't very strong.
Sure.
So that's the background behind it. So now my task is with the IGA, the International Grooms Association. I cannot bear it when I walk around the stables and I'm like, are you a member? Are you a member? Are you a member? I don't want to ask that. Everyone should be a member.
Yeah.
It's like €15 for the year. It's nothing. You should just want to belong because you're proud that you've got your own voice. You've got your own organization. This is historic. Never before have grooms had an organization. So many grooms choose not to belong, which I find sad.
It is. Actually, it should be like when you go to a riding school, for example, you're paying for a license for the whole year, for your insurance, for everything. So I guess it should be the same, and even more for the FEI grooms.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we make it very affordable because we don't want to make it expensive because there's only so much we can give with the membership. So I don't think it's right that it's expensive. I have a dream that eventually we can have an insurance-based membership with some kind of personal accident insurance, but I can't get that until we get into the thousands of members. I can't negotiate that.
Sure.
It's not possible. So, but we absolutely, we had a meeting with the FEI just today.
Okay.
We meet all the time with the FEI. I mean, the problem is we can't always tell the horse world, what the meetings we have. But we had a meeting today where we're still discussing the fun issue of classes that finish late. And we have a good proposal that we've put forward to help with late classes regarding the number of horses coming into prize givings. I'm hopeful it will get accepted. And if it does, that is something we have done.
True.
And that will make a difference. And there is every chance they will accept it. If they don't, we tried and we'll try again. But without us representing, the grooms have no voice. So that is the point of the IGA.
And what are the main issues that grooms report to you in your role within the BGA or the IGA?
So employment, I'm afraid, it's the way that grooms are employed, and this is a worldwide issue. And in the UK, you have to bear in mind we've had the BGA, the British Grooms Association, for many years now, and we are very vocal, and we campaign and try to educate, because I do believe education is the way forward. Make people aware of their employment rights, make the grooms aware, and grooms, hey, don't go and work in these illegal positions. Don't shrug your shoulders and say, hey, it'll be okay, because it won't. It won't. And as I always say, you wouldn't work in a factory with not correct payment and no insurance and silly working hours and dangerous machinery that has no health and safety regulation. You wouldn't work in a factory like that. So why would you work in a yard like this? Okay. So in the BGA, even with all of that support and education in the UK, we still get so many inquiries from grooms that work under the incorrect employment status. They're told they're self-employed when they're actually employed. And they don't understand the implications of that. And we still unfortunately, we get quite a lot of evidence. We did a survey just recently and some research about how poor employment leads to poor mental health. So if you're badly employed, unfortunately, you're going to be sad, and sad can lead to worse. So, the most simple things like having a contract and having the correct pay and being talked to in a respectful manner, whatever the situation, and good HR and good management won't necessarily save everybody from poor mental health, but the truth is it will help. So with that in mind, we also have the Equestrian Employers Association, which is the EEA. the sister organisation to the BGA, as we call it, which is the organisation for the employers. So if we want to make the industry a place of good employment, you have to help and guide the employers. So that's what the EEA does. And we have over 1,000 members now, which is great. And it's growing, and we're helping employers all the time to become good employers, give them the support that they need. It's confusing, it's complicated at times, so we help them. So the questions that come to the BGA invariably about employment and also for the genuine freelance grooms chasing payments, people that don't pay them correctly. But if I'm honest, in a lot of the cases, the freelance groom is not running a good business. They're not set up. They haven't got client. We have a tool on the BGA website called the Client Agreement Creator, where as a genuine freelancer, and when I say genuine freelancer, I mean you're running your own business. You have multiple clients, sort of like you do. And you should have a client agreement with every client because it's your business. These are the terms of my business. But so many freelance grooms, they just don't do that. So then they find that they end up in a sticky situation where the client doesn't pay them. So those are the kind of questions that we get quite a lot. For the IGA, the conversation is still very much focused on what happens at the shows. So this is currently IGA is, the 5-star and the 4-star shows. They're not perfect, but they're a lot better, and you're finding a lot better facilities for the grooms, the food. Something we ask shows to introduce is a grab and go food. So we work with the shows to say, hey, you're offering nice food in this sit down restaurant, but the grooms are too busy. They haven't time to sit down at lunch. Can you just provide a carton, a eco-friendly carton nowadays rather than plastic, but a box where if there's nice hot food or salad, the groom can take it and take it back to the stables and eat quickly on the go. I'm a fan of grooms actually taking a lunch break and sitting for 10 minutes and eating, but we know how it works. And if your rider has a class during that time, you don't want to miss the lunch period, so you can take away a salad and eat it later on. That's fine. And lots of shows are introducing that. I went to visit Den Bosch in Holland, and I was very happy when Frank Kempelman, who's the lead there, showed me that the rider lounge is now the rider and groom lounge. We're seeing that a lot. This exclusive rider lounge is becoming a place, it's behind the scenes, and it's a place where the grooms can go to. And why not? That's crazy not to allow the grooms in. That's hierarchy. And so, but unfortunately, we still know that the 1 to 3 star shows, in many cases, they're not good. They are under the FEI banner, and this needs to be improved. Grooms also need to understand that those shows often they don't have a requirement to provide food. So it's not within the rules of running the show that you suddenly get a 3-course meal. You're not going to get it. However, the show could do certain things to help for the grooms. So, for example, we saw one show who made a groom's fast lane on the food catering, the public catering. So there was one lane that was just a sign and a little bit of, the bunt, or whatever you call it, the guidance into the lane. So if there was a groom that wanted to get some food and there was a big long queue for the public, the groom could jump the queue by going in the groom lane. Yeah, well, the public can wait for one more order. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
It really doesn't. And I think the public are pretty understanding and supportive of the groom concept. But, by just doing that means that the groom can grab the food and go back. So we need to, from the groom side, we need to resolve that. Other issues, employment is also an issue worldwide. There are some very good employers on the international scene, and there are some very bad employers on the international scene. And we need to see a more legal, compliant form of employment worldwide of grooms.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of my biggest concerns, there was recently a very lucky escape, really, of a horse box crash, on the way to a horse show just recently. The groom was driving. Can't go into the case, but really it was not good. And, that was a classic example of the groom working too many hours and driving as well. And I think riders must stop this practice. As a groom, you can start work at 6:30 in the morning on the last day of the show. You finish at 10 p.m. and then you've got to drive all night. Man, that's not healthy. So riders, if they're going to run this type of operation, they need to employ drivers. The groom should be
Yeah,
asleep. Yeah. And
sure.
this is something that should change.
And apart from education, why do you think these or some of the issues you just mentioned are so common?
Because they haven't been tried to be changed before. They've just existed and the grooms have just accepted it. And it's kind of this culture of, well, that's just the way it is. And nobody's been outspoken and if you don't like it, you just leave and someone else would come in the shoes of your position. And I think we're in a new culture where certain things are not deemed accepted rather. And I think that is something that we will see change over the next 10 years of professionalism and integrity
Mm-hmm.
and best practice. And I think you're going to find, obviously, horse welfare is very high profile at the moment, but I think human welfare needs to come up there too. And the welfare of the grooms, even at a show like the meeting we had today, we're talking about the rules regarding 1 to 3 star. And, there should be any FEI show that puts on, that is an FEI show, any show, but an FEI show. Of course, there must be good toilets, good showers, plug-in that works for every accommodation vehicle. I mean, you can't be living without plug-in.
Mm-hmm.
Not one night, sure, but not for 5, 6, 7, 8 nights. There's too much. And also there should be something we feel really strongly about. There should be always water in the stables area, fresh water, drinking water. So we ran a campaign last year, which we will run again this summer, called Hydrated Grooms. And, we discovered so many grooms that are going to shows and they're not drinking. But that's terrible in global warming and working in these hot. And they say, well, I could drink out the tap, but I'm not sure if the water is really drinkable. I'm not sure. And then we heard reports from grooms that had actually got poorly by drinking the tap water. It's always not so easy to fill up from the hose. So, and if the hose water is drinkable, then fine, but put a sign that says drinkable water. It's normal. But you go to a show and you discover there's water bubblers, like fill up your water from in VIP, in the media, in the event organizer's office, in the rider's lounge. But the people in the stables who are out in the heat, not in the aircon, they're in the heat all day. They have no water. It's mad, right? So, and it's again, you've got to change the culture. So what I say is, like, for the show organizers, if on 1 year they're ordering of water, these shows have been going for a long time, so many of them, long, many years. And there'll be one person responsible for ordering the water. Just one. And they will look at the order from last year and they'll say, yep, do the same. But if in 1 year you interrupt that water order and say, right, well, every second day you need to put 10 units at the stables, for example, then the following year, guess what? The 10 units will appear at the stables. So you've got to disrupt, you've got to change the policy. And that's the way you change. And my challenge is getting the grooms, the international grooms, to understand that not everything will change immediately. It takes time. It takes a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But if we didn't have the IGA, there was no means to change.
Mm-hmm.
one person on a Facebook group having a moan is not going to achieve change.
No,
No.
sure. Yeah,
And it's a
definitely.
short-sighted view that, one, everything will change immediately just because we have an IGA. That's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. And two, that the change will happen without grooms belonging to the IGA. Because I also think that's like, I don't know, I think, so we have like hundreds of members of the IGA, but for the grooms that have sit at the show and say, oh, I can't be bothered to join, it's not for me, I'm not going to bother. But they're the same grooms that turn up for the groom's party, take the pizza, take the beer. That has been they take the groom's prizes. They're very happy when things improve, but they haven't been part of that journey, which I think is a bit unfair. I think everyone should belong and be part of that journey of change. So, yeah.
But I believe like it's that would come from education, definitely. I think because that's how you said before. It's like how the things works. I've like worked since now, so it's even for the groom. It's like that's how it is. You know, I can't change it, or even going there. It's like as a kind of a resignation, saying that it's like this. But what I understand, it's like it's a win-win for everyone, even for the horses. But for the groom, as for the rider, the company that is employing the groom. But there is something you haven't mentioned, not directly at least. It's actually what I found, what I can witness. There's a huge turnover in the stables, something I never really experience in other kind of work or companies, and which that's a huge cost, even if you don't have a employment contract or whatever with your groom. It's a big loss at the end of the day. Like having, I don't know, in my last experience, I've stayed a bit more than a year in the stable, where the conditions were quite nice. We had a contract, but even in a year, I saw about, not kidding, more than 10 person going and living.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you offer good employment, you offer very good employment, and people will stay. If you offer a nice, good place to work where there's good treatment, you're respected, you're paid correctly. It is a bit of a, the phrase nomad, it is a bit of a nomad existence. Some people do just go from one to the next. I'm not a massive fan of that, because I don't think that's so good for your CV. However, if you are employed incorrectly, then don't stay. Don't even start, actually, Don't support these positions of poor employment, because you go and work there, you're just allowing it to happen, and there'll be someone else that will follow you. So then they don't change. But, good positions people will keep people, for sure. We see at the show, we see people at the shows working for good riders, and they stay. I've seen the same people year on year. They don't leave. They stay for many, many, many years. But the ones that leave are always the ones that are poorly employed. Some people will leave a role because maybe they're a home groom and they want to become a traveling groom. And there's not an opportunity, because for some of the top grooms, they do stay with the rider for many, 5-10 years. So I think it's good, and that's a natural progression, that you want to be a traveling groom, an opportunity appears and you go travel with a different rider. But as far as yards with high turnover, there's no way they're a good employer. Yeah. And what makes a good employment? What is that position? Having your contract, depends what country you're in, but in Europe, you must have a contract of employment, something written down. So having a contract, being paid on time, being paid for the hours that you've worked, having your holiday, your holiday entitlement, receiving it and having it planned, and not just at the end of the year, oh, by the way, you've got 28 days, take it tomorrow and there's 3 days left. you know, and all the just the normal good things about unemployment, that it's legal in the sense of health and safety and all of these other bits and bobs and then finally for your employer to be nice to you and treat you with respect. I mean, it's terrible that there's still employers out there that treat their staff like they're second-rate citizens. This is rubbish. This is stupid. It's short-sighted because your staff will leave. And one thing I would say that has been, a really good improvement in the equestrian world is now we really do see much more from riders on social media saying thank you to their grooms. I mean, and the FEI have done a great job at the top shows of highlighting the grooms in the TV credits. And I think that really, because what we want to do is make this an attractive career. And I really believe that sorting out the employment issues, the non-compliance with legislation, employment legislation, I think that can be sorted. I really do. And I think in the UK, we're working very hard to get it to be a place of only what we call good employment, legal employment. And then, listen, we can't make everybody a nice person, but we'll try. But, you make people have a good career and they can have an enjoyable career looking after horses. And for some people, I'm really honest, for me, it was, I reached maybe, how old was I? 28 years old. And I went, I don't want to do this anymore. That is normal. That's okay. If you're a groom listening to this and you're 25, 26 or whatever age, and you go, you know what, I've done it. I'm done with early mornings and I'm done. I have a new boyfriend or a girlfriend and I want to spend time with them on the weekends, not going to horse show. That is cool. There's no problem with that. And I think that grooms need to understand that, or young, people that work with horses, it's okay. It's okay to do the job for a period of time and then go and do something else. Completely normal. But the skills you will learn in your time working as a groom, especially as an international groom, they're transferable skills to any other career. Attention to detail, timekeeping, communication, planning, logistics, travel plans, it goes on. And all of those skills are so transferable. But if at the time you are, like I was, obsessed with horses and passionate about horses, and you want to have some great experiences, I mean, working with horses is a great career. It's fun. You get to see the world. The grooms on the GCT, the Global Champions Tour, those grooms, they travel in the world, and then it's not costing them anything. And hey, you might have gone around the world 3 times and then you're bored of it. You're done. Okay. You saw the world. You went to Singapore. You went to here. You went to LA. You went everywhere. What a great, it cost you nothing. Part of your work. Well, that's an exciting life to lead, I think. I still would be a GCT group with pleasure.
Yeah.
I think it's really fun and really exciting. And I'm a terrible spectator. Because I'm like, where's my accreditation? I can't. So, I always say, when I do a lot of talks in colleges, I say, who would like to ride at the Olympic Games? Who'd like to be an Olympian? And all the hands go up. Say, I've got bad news for you. None of you will. It's the truth, right? And then I say, now, who would like to also go to the Olympic Games as a groom? Okay, hands go up. I said, I have good news for you. Every one of you could, if you wish. You've got to be a little lucky, for sure, but there is nothing to stop you. Yeah, so it's a great career. But we just got to get the employment side. We've got to make sure that employment side is fixed for everyone. And we have to help the national federations through the IGA to just modernise and support riders. And we have to be patient because I think it's going to take another 10 years, if I'm honest.
Yes. I mean, change takes time, like everything, but at least you're here to impulse that. So that's great.
Yeah, we'll do it. We won't give up. So we know we're on this one. We know we're right. So.
Yes. No, it's like, as you said, like it's such a... I mean, if you really like horses, it's like such a rewarding and beautiful work to do. Like the bond you're creating with your horse, the experience you can live with them and with the rider, it's like unforgettable. And it's, I mean, I won't tell the opposite. But I can't believe we're already reaching the end of this interview. Actually, I had plenty more questions, but I know we're quite short on time here.
Part two. We can do part two.
But yeah, I'd love to. But still, I'd end it with, if you're okay with that, with the question I used to do to every guest who's coming behind the mic of the Modern Rider. And the first one is if you'd like to share a message with the equestrian community.
Oh, for sure. Thank you. Well, for British grooms, come and join the British Grooms Association, britishgrooms.org.uk. Just Google it. Mm-hmm. And for the international grooms that are working for FEI riders, be it at the show, be it at home, or anybody that has the inspiration, the aspiration to become an international FEI level groom, come and join the International Grooms Association, which is internationalgrooms.org. Again, Google will help you find it. And my real message to all grooms is only work in positions of good employment. And if it's not right, leave. Just leave. Yeah, leave properly, but just leave. Don't work in them, because you won't make yourself happy, and you owe the rider nothing. Okay, you look after yourself.
Sure.
So that's my message.
Great, love it. Is there anyone you'd recommend me to interview for a future episode?
Oh, wow. Any grooms, I'd say. I think
I already had one, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I can. There's a whole lot of good British grooms, but this is a bit more of a worldwide podcast. But I mean, we have some great grooms on our board of directors, and you know, I think Melina Obst, who works for Marcus Eining, she's good value. She tells some good stories, and there is also I think that if you can get 2 or 3 grooms together for the
that'd be great.
Yeah, then they get a jumping, eventing, and dressage groom, and then they bounce off each other. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
We do one with Jackie Potts, who was William Fox Pitt's groom, Jenny Ellis, who's groomed for all the Whitakers and more, and Alan Davis, who's Carl's groom. And the 3 of them together are fantastic. So yeah, bring a couple of grooms together.
I love it. That's quite a format I should experience and try to. Okay, good idea. Thanks. Is there any book or resources you'd like to recommend?
British Grooms Association website and the International Grooms Association website. We don't have time for books.
Right. And the last one, there's actually a playlist in Spotify of the favorite or motivational songs. And I'd like to ask you if you'd like to add one.
Oh my goodness. Give me a clue what's on there.
Everything. We've got everything, like really.
Oh, I'm not very good on songs.
We have country, we have everything, like from any style.
Oh my goodness me. Imagine by John Lennon.
Perfect.
That's my imagination for the equestrian industry to be a perfect place of good employment and happy place for grooms. So that's the one. If you don't have that, then don't stop believing. Same kind of message.
All right, I love it.
Journey. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. It'd be there. Well, thank you, Lucy, again. Thanks for your time. I know you're quite busy, and thanks for sharing everything you've shared, and obviously for the great work you're doing for all the grooms internationally. And I will follow your work. And yes, thank you. That's the main word, I believe.
Thank you very much. Take care.
See you too.
Bye.
Bye. And so we come to the end of our episode today. I hope this conversation was as insightful for you as it was for me.
You'll find more details about the different associations in the episode notes in case you'd like to explore their work further or even join them if you're a groom yourself. And as always, I want to remind you that your participation is essential. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the podcast, I invite you to leave a note or comment. Sharing it with your contacts is also an excellent way to spread this valuable information. Thank you again for sharing your time with us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for a new exciting interview.